I almost screwed up again. I almost forgot to hit live. But anyway, we're on. Tonight, I'm going to have my friends back on. Charlie Giamenco's coming on to apologize for them remarks he made last time. And um, there was Gary wrote me an email, and he was very upset about the language, and so was I. And it was something that's wasn't something that you couldn't defend. And Charlie's coming on tonight to apologize for the remarks that he made. In the meantime, I'm going to answer a couple of questions that came in. And then I'm going to bring Charlie and then back on. And this one is from Glenn. Glenn, how do you say that name? Glenn what?
Glenn Blittner.
Glenn Blittner, 400. Larry, did you ever stop and think that it was the racing secretary who got in Morty Finder's ear about your horse that he supposedly bet 10,000 on at 7-1?
7-1 odds.
Said 7-1 odds. That's a huge bet in 1965. There's no way he makes that bet on handicapping alone. Somebody told him you were live in that race. Okay. I have a couple of things to say about that, and that's why I picked this as one of the questions to answer. First of all, back in them days, back in the 60s, the Yonkers and Roosevelt, their handle every night was between $2 and $3 million. And the only gimmick races they had was the daily double, and the last four races were a twin double. So they had no gimmicks in between. So every penny that was bet of the $2-3 million handle went into the win pool, except for them, the twin double, the last four races, and daily double in the beginning. So that's the first thing. So a $10,000 bet was not the handle could handle it. Plus, it could be, and I don't know, and I don't remember, and I don't have the program. It could be that maybe I was in one of them twin double races, and they keyed on me, and just bought enough tickets to lock up the twin. I don't know, but and the other thing was that years later, in 1982, I think it was, and I mentioned this on one of the podcasts. Morty Finder came to me with Lou Guida, and like I said before, Lou Guida, vice president of Merrill Lynch, he would buy 10 yearlings every year. He's formed 10 syndicates, and I think he gave each trainer either 5 or 10 horses that he bought with the money that he'd raised. He spent $1 million on each syndicate. And I think he bought 5 horses or 10 yearlings and gave them to 10 different trainers. I was one of the trainers that he gave them to. And me and Morty became good friends, not knowing, and I never knew until he told me that the reason Tannenbaum threw me out of Yonkers was because of, and then the story that I related was that story, that Tannenbaum had a direct line to Morty at his table at Yonkers, and he called up, and these are Morty's words now, from what I could remember. We're betting on the kid. We're gonna bet 10,000. Now that 10 could have been a win bet. It could have been in gimmicks. It could have been who I don't know. All I know is that what Morty told me, and Morty says, we're betting 10,000 on the kid. And Tannenbaum said, who's the kid? And he said, Larry Rolla. He got whatever horse it was. And he said, okay, after the race, I finished third, I think, climbing right over the winner. I was right over his back and with a ton of horse leaning straight back. And naturally, Morty says, he stiffed the horse and he went crazy. And so that's how that's how I found out, and that's the story that was relayed to me. And back then, it was well known that Morty Finder made them kind of bets, whether it be gimmick bets or straight bets or exacted doubles, twin doubles. And in fact, everybody that was around back in them days, they knew that Tannenbaum gave Morty his own window. He had his own window because back then, the windows, if I remember right, they were $2 windows, they were $5 windows, and then they were $10 windows. So if you wanted to bet $100, you had to go to the $10 window and say, "Give me the 5-horse 10 times," and that's how it worked. But Morty had his own window where he can go there and they can punch out because he'd be the only one there online. Nobody can go that window, and he did bet that kind of money. So that's as much as I could tell you. I didn't make that story up. That's what Morty told me.
But do you think the racing secretary, because of your conversation with him about the horse being classified as going to claim it, could he have passed that along that you like the horse?
Here's what I asked the race secretary. I asked the race secretary, and by me telling you what I told him, you would see that it was really nothing to say. Here's what I went to the race secretary, and I had already won 3 or 4 races with this particular horse. And I said, "Listen, I know I'm making a mortal sin. I don't want to put him in claimers. I own him. I'm really attached to this horse. I win 4 races with him. I'm afraid he's going to get claimed, and I really don't want to lose him. Could you classify this horse?" The race secretary told me, "Listen, he's an aged racehorse. If you take him out of claimers, the lowest I can classify him is B3. Now, B3, I was racing in 4, 5, 6, 8 claimers.
C3.
That's C3, C2, and now he's bumping me up to where maybe a B3 pacer would be a $20,000 claimer. So the race secretary allowed me to do that, and he did classify in B3, and the race that I was in was B3. But what would he tell? What could he possibly tell a bettor, even though he was, believe me, they were in close contact with the race secretary, with Morty Finder, and with Tannenbaum. They had that cycle going, but there was really nothing they could tell. He just based it merely on the horse that I claimed him for $2,500. I win 3s, I win the 4s or 5s, I win the 6 or 7s, and that he was just winning in hand each time. And
now you were winning out of town with him at a cheaper track?
No, this was strictly New York. This was for the first time I ever raced. This was at Yonkers Raceway, the first time I ever.
So they had 4 and 5 claimers.
So they had. I claimed him. I think I claimed him at Roosevelt. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive I claimed him at Roosevelt Raceway, and I'm almost positive it was a $2,500 claimer. Now, this was in 1962, I think, something like that.
60 years
now,
ago,
maybe,
that was a lot of money.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a 3,000 claimer, but it was right around there. It was a low claimer in New York, and I'm sure that somebody out there will fact check me. But I would bet
60 years ago,
my right arm that it was a minimum of a 3,000 claimer. I thought it was a $2,500 claimer, and I think I claimed it from Anthony Abatello.
Let me just say hello to Tom Kopp, James Shaniga, and Spencer. And here comes Tom Kopp, Larry the Kid. I remember when they used to call me the Kid.
Okay, let me answer this other question. This is from Joe. How do you say that name?
Datillo.
Joe Datillo. Hello, Mr. Rolla. I've been around thoroughbred horses since the early 60s. 12-year-old boy then. I'm presently a horseless owner. Just retired my last horse. Was a little off. Gave her to turning for home. I guess that's
retirement.
Yeah, that was real nice of him. In my opinion, HISA is doing some nonsense rule changes. I'm on the fence about continuing uh, enough about continuing. I guess he means by being a horse owner, whether to get back into business or not. And then he writes, enough about me. The horses are tools of the business. Got to keep them sharp. With HISA involved, forget about it. You are 100% on about everything you mentioned on this matter. Thank you for your time. Well, here's what I feel about. Here's what I feel. First of all, it's very nice of you to retire because you're one of you want. There's very few of you around horse owners that retired their horse to a home after the horse was done racing or was a little sore. That's really nice. Um, Now, my opinion about HISA. The reason I wasn't I had a negative attitude about him, and I still do as far as thoroughbred racing goes. And they put a lot of rules in place that give the trainer very little chance to treat the racehorse, the way he should be treated um, before and after a race. I'm not going to get into specifics, but they eliminated any kind of help that you could give a racehorse, especially after the race. And I'm not going to get into things that could be done, but the thoroughbreds accepted all the rule changes that were made. Now, when they came to the standardbreds rejected them, and they finally, from what Freddie Hudson tells me, they're finally willing to make concessions in the rules, and um, and if that happens, I think it could be a good thing. So that's how I feel about it. But the thoroughbreds, from what I understand, already signed the contract. They already did them rule changes that they made. They're strict and they're tough. But I could tell you one thing. They're going to find ways to get around it. I don't know what the answer is because I really don't spend a lot of time. And even if I did spend a lot of time, nobody's going to listen to me anyway. But there are so many things that should be done to a racehorse to keep them both sound and happy and healthy in body and mind. And it's they stripped all that away, even as far as maybe injecting an ankle. Uh, they just stopped a lot of things that shouldn't have been stopped that help a horse, and all in an effort to try to eliminate the cheating with the drugs and everything else. But let me tell you something that I found out a long time ago. In the 70s, I had horses with every hotel owner. Bobby Parker, who owned the Concord, Manny Halbert owned the Raleigh, Grossinger owned Grossinger's, Slutsky owned the racetrack and the Neville. And it was Manny Halbert that come to me one day, and he said, "Larry, you know the bartender, my chief bartender. His name was Howie." He says, "I'm being robbed blind." He says, "Look, anybody that owns a bar, they kind of accept 10%, that they're getting robbed for 10% of whatever the take is for the day or night." He says, "They're chopping me up pretty bad." He says, "Can you talk to Howie and tell him to take it easy with me?" And that was the same. That was the same request I got from all the other hotel owners because I was out at the hotels every single night. And I went to Howie and I says, "You're chopping this guy up pretty bad." He came to me and his answer to me was, "Well, fuck him." So I didn't say nothing. I just said I spoke to him and that was that. And it continued. So what Manny did, along with all the other hotel owners, and I know nothing about it because I don't drink, so I don't know. I may not say this the right way. They put some kind of system on all the bottles where it monitored the bottles through some kind of way and everything else, and so to make sure that they weren't going to get robbed. And what happened was it took the bartenders probably an hour and then instead of robbing 50%, they rob 75%. So, the Racing Commission and whoever's in charge of writing these rules, HISA, they're gonna have a tough time. And like I said, I think if guys like me and Campbell and some of the old timers that really knew the ropes and some of the old trainers, we could probably figure out a way that would be that would help the trainer be able to maintain the conditioning and health of a horse, and also help the horse at the same time. But rules eliminating everything, I don't think are going to happen, because they'll always find the bad guys will always find a way. So that's what I have to say about that. Now, I also want to say that last week somebody called in. I can't think of who it was, and we're trying to think of the guy who won the most handsomest trainer driver in Monticello. And I always thought it was Philip Carbone, because everybody entered that. Ronnie Pearson, the DeSimone brothers, Joe DeSimone, Johnny DeSimone, everybody entered. And I always thought it was Philip Carbone that won. But somebody said, no, it wasn't. It was a guy called Charlie Hollywood or something like that. And I said, you're right. It was this guy, Charlie. And I found out, I thought of it all week. I've been thinking about it. And his name was Charlie Garlinghouse. Very, very handsome kid. I knew his father well. I knew Charlie well. And he won. He was a very good looking guy. He wound up going to Florida. He was in the horse business. He wound up getting out of the horse business and wound up marrying a girl, had a pretty good job. In fact, a pretty wealthy girl. And he got out of the horse business, and he was living a good life the last time I saw him, which was probably 40 years ago. But the guy's name was Charlie Garlinghouse. Now, as far as Gary Schwartz, he took offense to the language that Charlie used on the last podcast. And I explained to him last podcast that it was not defensible. It was terrible. It was disgusting, and I let him know that some of my best friends were Jewish, and that I, even though I called him a lot of names, I just never used the same language Charlie used. But I'm not going to try to defend it in any way. I'm not going to say that the two guys he was talking about. I'm not going to say anything. He was wrong by using it, and Charlie is coming on tonight to apologize. I sent him the link, and he should be coming on any time now. In the meantime, I'm going to put up my other two friends. Dominic, right there?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay. All right. Did you ever get in touch with Charlie? Is Charlie coming on?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see him yet. So whatever he's doing, he's not doing it right.
Did you click him on?
Well, I have him on. I have him on there, but
he's not connected.
He's not connected. It says device not connected. So whatever he's doing, they need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. So whatever he's doing, he's not doing. It says, can you see the screen here? It says they will need to connect their mic cam. I
don't see that. I don't see that.
The bottom line is he's not connected. So tell him that he's not connected. Whatever he did last week,
hey,
he's got to do it again.
Yeah.
Tell him to disconnect and connect it again.
Maybe disconnect and connect it again.
If he wants, I can't send him another link. I don't know how to do that. So he's already on there. Just tell him to fool around with the connections. In the meantime,
Craig from the Reality Report saying hello. Larry.
Craig from the Reality. How you doing, Larry? How you doing, Craig? I'm doing okay. Things are moving right along. I had some producers here from California. We had to change the whole structure. We're not going to do a TV series only because
Plug
they-
the camera.
they're turning down a lot of TV series because of the cost. And the word that got back to me is that they could they could do a reality show for maybe 100, 200,000 an episode, and it would cost them 2, 3 million on the low end to do one episode of a TV series. And they told me that Yellowstone, I think it was 15 million an episode. And so they're switching from TV series now, and you're going to see a lot of reality shows. So we decided to make it a movie again. This way, at least it gets out. But the problem with that, just like Nicholas Pileggi says, that I have a script. The script is 130 pages, which is 20 pages too long, and there's over 300 voiceovers, and still left out half the story. So I don't know, but we're going to try to make it work. We got some good writers rewriting the script and try to
the other camera.
fill it all in. So anyway, that's it.
And
Craig, I hope you're doing well. And hope to talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.
talking about the claiming prices, take a look at this.
Let's see. James, $3,000 in 1963 is 30,000 K today's dollars. Well, that's true,
That
but
makes sense. So they
the-
had
the-
three claim. It was not
yeah.
a cheap
you know
investment.
what? You know what? I have right here. I just remembered. And you know how I remembered it? It's my cousin's birthday. I think these are, what are these? Here.
What are you trying, Charlie?
I got, see this? Can they see this? Yonkers program. Can you see where's the date? See on the bottom here? Let's see.
Says Wednesday, May 25th.
What year? It says
66.
1966. See if there's the cheapest claimant that they have in there. Here's one from Roosevelt.
Here's a Monday night. They'll have cheap claimer.
Well, see if there's any in there.
Wow.
See what I just remembered this. Somebody just sent it to me with the Federal Express. What's the cheapest claimant? I didn't even know I had this stuff.
Here's a person's 3,000 claim it in.
There is a 3,000 claimant?
Race number 1, Early McClyo.
All right, so they had 3,000 claimers back then. So
I don't see one.
I was right, but it's so, you know, we're
lit up.
talking about 60, we're talking about 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Here's A2 Paces race for $5,000 with the purse.
Yeah, but I'm
And
talking
those
about
four-
what's the cheapest claimant?
Well, I
Was it
saw it-
3,000
I saw
claimant?
the 3. I don't see anything lower yet. There might be A1A. What, they put some card on from Monday night. A1, A2. These Poco Moonshine.
Amazon.
I remember
Fontaine.
that.
Let me
horse.
tell you a story about Poco Moonshine.
All right.
Poco Moonshine was Lucien Fontaine's horse, right? And he had a full brother that raced in Monticello.
Lucien owned them.
Yeah, I don't know why
Lucien
we
owned
won't
Poco
see it.
Moonshine. And
you
Poco
definitely
Moonshine had a full
click,
brother that
exit
raced in
studio.
Monticello, and he couldn't beat nobody. And Lucien claimed him,
Click that, Charlie. and
Tired of
video.
retired his
Yes,
brother that couldn't beat nobody. Anyway, how'd you make out, Anthony?
He's trying. He says his camera is lit up.
Well, it says device is not connected, so
I don't know why. He said his camera's lit up. I asked him if he
Well,
put
anyway,
that in studio.
in the event that he don't get on here, Charlie told me to tell Gary and everybody else that was listening, everybody in the whole world, that he's not he didn't mean it. He shouldn't have said what he said, and he's sorry for what he said and how he said it. He apologizes, and he wants to come on tonight. He's just having a problem connecting. He's on the phone now with Anthony.
Amazon.
And
Larry, did you click him on?
I
He
clicked
said his
him on.
camera's on, yeah.
I click them on. It says they will need to connect their mic and camera before you can add them to the stream. So just tell them to connect his mic and camera.
Yeah, he said everything is on.
Well,
Yeah, he hears us, sees us. Yeah. He
Anyway, what else? What else?
apology.
What else here? Let's see some of these questions here. I wish you guys would send in questions. You could send me questions about anything, about the movies, about the mob, about the
We'll try
races,
another
about
time,
the
maybe.
fiction, about
Just
the
keep trying,
jockeys,
I guess. I don't
about
know what
anything that you want. I didn't prepare nothing because I was going to have my 3 friends on here, and Charlie was going to send his apologies out and tell some more stories.
I'm going to read this. It's more of a general type thing.
But
So,
and I had some pictures I wanted to put up.
let me hang up for now.
Really hot, so.
Mike is on. Yeah, I don't know why you're not coming on.
Joe Mazza.
I don't understand. All right.
All right, he'll figure it out. In the meantime,
Meantime,
Gary said he wasn't going to watch the show anyway. He says, "Don't worry about apologizing because I'm not going to watch. You lost a guy, and I'm sorry for that."
we'll
And
try another time.
like I told Gary, maybe
We'll
I should
try a dry run.
I'm not. I'm not.
All right, I'm going to read this now. What I had wrote this morning.
Anyway, I think Anthony has something to read. All right, Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah. All right. This is something general. It's for everybody. It's not directly for any particular person. It's just something I thought of. All right. I wrote, racing with horses for a number of years taught me one thing, and that's you can learn anything from anybody. That being said, in our business, we have every walk of life, people with very diverse backgrounds. We become friends, partners, did all sorts of dealings with many different people. On a daily basis, we work hand in hand with Jewish, Catholic, Christians, atheists, you name it, including men, women, blacks, white, Asians, Spanish, Italians, Australians, Hawaiians, Canadians, just to name a few. We are not and cannot be prejudiced against anybody. We would stand alone if we did. I grew up in the Bronx in New Jersey. I now live in North Carolina, the Bible Belt. As soon as I open my mouth, people want to know where I'm from. When I tell them I'm Italian from the Bronx, they want to know right away if I'm with the mafia. Do I get offended? Of course not. Maybe it's my upbringing to have a tougher skin than that. Another trait I learned from a very early age is not to squeal on anybody. You handle your business like a man. As many as you already know, Larry and my uncle Con Erico fixed many races together. My uncle went to federal prison for not squealing. Again, none of us are prejudiced. We grew up on the streets and we might have expressed ourselves in an unorthodox way, but no offense is meant by it. I know we live in a hypersensitive world, which is a shame because a lot of us have more serious challenges in life that we meet on a daily basis. As far as Larry is concerned, many of you might know this already, but he's helped more people and spent more money on people that he didn't even know. When people needed help, whether it was sending them to Dr. Burton or whatever, he never asked, are they black, white, Asian, Spanish, nothing. He just helped them. So please, if anybody gets a little offended, we don't mean anything by it. It's just the way we are, and we are not prejudiced against anybody. We're just maybe sometimes a little rough around the edges, that's all. So, but please, don't be offended. We mean nothing by it. And that's it. I just wanted to say that.
It's and thank you for reading that, because it's basically true. And like I said last week, some of my best friends were and are Jewish. Some of the toughest people I know, the smartest people are Jewish that are my friends even today. But in reality, and I shouldn't even say this because it looks like I'm trying to justify what Charlie said, and there really is no justification for what Charlie said. However, when we're at the barn, and in my barn, and your brother was there, and he's right there, Dominic. In my barn, there were black guys that worked for me. There were Jewish guys that worked for me. There were Greek guys that worked for me. There were Spanish guys that worked for me. And I can't tell you how many times we'd sit around and say, that Greek fuck.
Yeah.
And there's a Greek sitting right there, but we're talking about somebody else. It's just a stupid slang bullshit talk that
Right.
we say.
Exactly. Right.
How and I'm sure everybody said it, but I guess when you say something like that, you know how many times I got called a guinea prick?
Of course.
You know.
One of us gained 10, 15 pounds. What do we say? Look at you, fat bastard.
Yeah, but you see, when we start
You know,
talking
we
like
don't
that,
get
it's like
anything
trying
by
to justify what Charlie said, and what Charlie said.
It's
he
not
shouldn't have said.
justifying. It's just saying how sometimes we express ourselves amongst each other.
Yeah, but you got to know where the line is. And
Exactly.
Charlie crossed the line. That's all. You know what we say in our clubhouse is one thing, but when
Right.
we handle it, handle it in the street. So
But knowing Charlie over 50 years, like I know yourself, I know he didn't mean anything by it. It's just,
he didn't. He's a good
expression
kid.
he used
Not only that, but
you
you
know.
know how many Jewish trainers and drivers that were up in Monticello that Charlie helped.
Yeah, of
But
course.
and not only that, but
Yeah.
the people he was describing are just bad people. And another thing that
I don't know if he'll be able to read it now. Maybe next week he'll be able to.
All right, enough of this. Let's
Okay.
move on.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
and
Charlie
another
said
thing,
a friend of his just emailed you. I know you probably wouldn't be able to read it now, but when you get off, maybe you could read it next week. It's a friend of his. His name is Judah, and a very, very good friend of Charlie's. So
he emailed me.
he emailed you. Yeah. Yeah.
A friend of.
Yeah.
Okay.
This Saturday is the Jim Dandy, and Sierra Leone is back at it.
Sierra Leone is racing.
And Spencer points out, and I noticed too, that he has been training alone in his workouts. Now, when he comes through the stretch, he turns his head a little and looks at the grandstand, but he goes straight.
Well, I didn't know he was racing.
He's in Saturday.
He's in the
A big
Saturday.
race too, a big race.
Running the announce off.
All right, so I'm gonna watch him. I was really hoping that thoroughbred trainer would be Pat Reynolds.
On again.
Here's a good one. Yeah.
Let's see.
Patrick
Smith. I grew up
Same thing. You
at
did.
Long Island Irish Crowd.
Wow. Well,
Wait, let me wait for Dominic to get off the phone.
Back up some so you're not on. Your voice isn't on if you're talking to Charlie. Back up.
All right. Patrick Smith I grew up at Long Island Irish Crowd. I'm half Italian, never told anybody. All my Italian friends were called guinea fucks. Oh, well, let's not go woke now. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that some people can handle it, some people can't. And the way Charlie spoke, he just spoke like we were sitting in the
barn.
clubhouse by ourselves, and that's the way we talked. I'm not going to say I never said what he said, but I certainly never said it out, and I'm certainly not prejudiced, and everything I said last week about my friends and everything else are true. And some of the most stand-up people in business, and this is the truth, the most stand-up people in business are Jewish.
He might be there now.
I got something to say if you have
I'm
time.
here. I'm there. Larry's got to let me in.
I hear you, Charlie.
He's in.
Everyone can see and hear you, but for some reason my camera's on, but it's not showing my face.
It's okay.
Right. Well, we hear you. You're on the screen, but your face is not on the screen. It's a round circle.
I know. That's what I see myself. Larry, listen, guys, before I even say another word, Anthony, Dominic, and Larry, you guys know me 40, 50 years. Dominic and Anthony's mother and father are like my mother and father. They were the greatest people in the world. I don't have an anti-Semitic or any kind of racist thing on a bone in my body. I said the other day, I was talking about Larry. The two guys I talked about, unfortunately, they were very bad guys, and they did a lot of bad things to me. And when I got a little carried away, and believe me, Some of my best friends, people I do business every day. Like a guy emails you just now. Read it when you talk. His name is Judah First. He runs a dealership in Brooklyn, and I do a lot of business with him. I'm going out to dinner with him and his family. He's an Orthodox Jewish young man and his father, and they wear yarmulkes every day. They're Orthodox. These are my best friends I deal with every day. I'm going to dinner to a kosher restaurant with him in Brooklyn. So again, Mr. Schwartz, Greg Schwartz, I didn't mean it by that. I just got a little carried away. It wasn't really, first time on the camera. I got a little too much. I was seeing my friends and I overstepped my grounds. And that's not me. I mean, I'm on a live radio show, Larry, every Thursday and Friday morning. This morning at 7:55, I'm a live radio on Long Island. It goes on. You hear me live. People, it's 103.9 FM. It's a very popular news radio, talk radio show. I'm on it every Thursday. I talked about, the president, the prime minister of Israel, what they did to him yesterday. It was a disgrace. So where is there any kind of anti-Semitic with me? So again, Mr. Schwartz and anyone out there heard that. That's not me. That's not what I'm about. And Larry, you guys know me a long time. I'm 70 years old. I work every day hard. I run a very good dealership, and I deal with people. My owner isn't Jewish. I mean, am I gonna say something like that? So again, I apologize to anyone because anyone's offended.
All right, Charlie. First of all, I extended your apology to Gary and to everybody else. Second is Gary emailed me last night, and everything that he said he was going to do, he took back. He said he cooled off. He maybe overreacted, but he's not going to go to your boy. He's not going to do anything that he said he was going to do. So the whole situation is neutralized, and we'll end it right now. And thank you for coming on, even though we don't see your face. Thank you for that apology. And because there was one other guy too that had a little issue with it, but he kind of let it go. But your apology means a lot to me, and to I'm sure that everybody accepts your apology. And as far as Gary goes, that whole situation is neutralized now, and that's it. Now, Charlie, tell me a funny story or some kind of story, and let's change the subject.
Listen, after I got myself in trouble,
He's got that picture. I sent it to him.
I'm a little.
I don't.
Again, there's you guys are great, man. You guys are friends of mine for many years. I love seeing you guys. I love doing this. I'll do it, whenever you guys want me to. I'll certainly be here, and hope I get this camera to work. But a lot of good stories, Larry. All the old days were the great days that we had. You mentioned names like Morty Finder and Lou Guider and the guy Charlie. What's his name? Charlie
Garlinghouse.
Garlinghouse. Do you remember him?
Of course I remember. Good looking guy. He was better looking than me, and I was pretty good looking back then.
I have a picture that Anthony sent me 3 times with you, Johnny Platino, and I think Dominic.
Yeah,
me.
I have it, and I can't. No matter every other picture you ever sent me, I was able to switch it over. That picture, it won't switch over for whatever reason, and it's a great picture. I can't see it on your screen.
It's a little glary.
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah, that's okay.
I like that one. Yeah.
You're about 200 pounds lighter.
Right.
You're about 200 pounds lighter. And the sad story about Johnny Platino, it gets me sick every time I see that.
Yeah. Johnny, I tell you what, it's sad. I spoke to him probably 10 years ago, I think, and he was in bad shape. I talked to like Bobby Lefeminer and Billy Perigin, good friends. But we stay in touch. I seen him out in California a few years ago. I went out there for like 9 days, my wife and I. And I met up with them. We had lunch. It was a good day. And we talk about Johnny Platino all the time. It's a shame. He just, I think he's at home with his mom, and he's a good kid, man. I worked for him for a while. I did some training for him. I worked at his barn for him. But, he's a good guy, Johnny. It's a shame.
Charlie, I remember you came to my barn in Monticello, you and Johnny Boy, and telling me, why don't you come to the Meadowlands with us and shit? And I did. And, I mean, it was, I think, Johnny Boy's first year driving there. And that's when he started driving Neverly Nova for me. Did really good, started getting catch drives and everything. And it's a shame how well he did over there, only to be, I guess where he is now.
Yeah,
What happened to him?
Well, I went to when you talked about that, I went with him to the Meadowlands, and I kind of let him, he was driving, let him do his driving. He was a driver. I trained, but we had the stable going really well, Johnny Boy, and I trained all his horses. I got them all going, so he was a good little driver for sure.
Yeah, he was a good driver. And you remember when you blew the you and him, you two assholes, blew the dust in my eye through the stall? He goes, Tony, wow, come here, look at this. You got to look at this. Look through the crack of the wood. And I got my eyeball and I'm looking through the crack of the wood. And they blow through it, blows all the dust in my eye.
I tell you what, Larry, you know it too. I mean, we can talk about Monticello because the fun we had there was it was like our own world. I talk about the first year I was there, Larry, in 1969. I was 15 and working for Herman Carbone. And we couldn't get a medal at the racetrack for 3 days with Woodstock. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I didn't get there till 71, but I remember that. I thought back then, and I said it last podcast, that in my opinion, if you remember back then, that Johnny Patino, Johnny DeSimone, Joe DeSimone, George Brennan, and one other kid I can't remember, they were all starting to drive together. They all had their qualifying license. And of all of them guys, Platino had the most talent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He was, and everybody recognized that. And he was given, and that was the reason he was given so many chances. And he was given big chances at the Meadowlands racetrack. And every time he was given a chance, he would succeed and take a step forward. But then he took 2 steps backwards every time. And after a while, people they just couldn't depend on him no more. And what a talented guy he was. And it was just sad. I got a question here from Lou. It says, Larry Galenso, why didn't you go to California and race after you were kicked out? Well, first of all, when I was kicked out, you got to remember, this was in the early 60s. I just started out. I didn't know much about the game. And in my mind, the only racetracks were Yonkers and Roosevelt. I raced cars prior to that. And then when I got into horse racing, I loved it and I really paid attention. But the only 2 tracks I knew was Yonkers and Roosevelt, and paid more attention to how to train a horse, how to condition a horse, how to treat lameness, how to recognize lameness. And that was my main thing. And then when I got thrown out, I says, where, as far as I knew, they were the only 2 racetracks in the world. But then when I start asking Mike Foley, I says, Mike, they threw me out of Yonkers. Where do I go? And he says, you're going to have to go to Dover Downs or Green Mountain, and then he started naming all of these racetracks. I had no idea that there was racetracks in California. And I'm not even sure if Los Alamitos was open then. Maybe it was, but I don't know. But whoever thought of traveling at that time 300 miles with some horses and 3,000 miles across the country to race? I never even came to mind. And so anyway, that answers your question.
There might be more underneath Patrick.
Let's see. If you guys have anything to say, I know Charlie's still trying to get his camera to work.
You still there, Charlie?
No, he left.
He left?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just take him off.
Whack him out.
I can't even take him off.
He's
not on. He's not,
Yes.
Well, whatever.
The box went away. That was it.
We'll do a dry run with him.
He's welcome. The guy who wrote the original.
No, Jimmy's asking me to tell Gary Schwartz that he's welcome back, and but based on the he was hurt pretty bad, and I guess he's one of them guys that take it to heart. I understand, and but naturally he's welcome back, and I'd love to have him back, especially if he has anything that he could add to this podcast, because Now, until the movie gets made, I'm just going to talk about anything. Anybody wants to come on, talk about strippers or hookers or gangsters or whatever. I even did a show here. It's something that a lot of people don't know, but the guy sitting 2 feet from my right had what do you call that? A spanking? What do you call that?
The Spanking Club.
The Spanking Club in New York. I don't know if you guys watched it, but one time he brought in, and I did a podcast on it, he brought in all the tools,
The implements.
the implements, the paddles and straps and this, and
Yeah, they got a little.
a lot of sick fucking people out there, boy. They want to get spanked, and it's a big business in New York right now. And this guy sitting next to me ran one of the biggest outfits doing that stuff, and he brought the paddles and everything in for me to show. And I did a whole podcast on it. But can you imagine that, paying money to go into a room with a bunch of people with no clothes on and want to get spanked with a bat or a paddle, and that's what this guy did. That's why he don't want to show his face. That's why he's sitting there off camera. But someday I'm going to convince him to get on the camera, and I won't even switch the camera over. I don't want to do that to him, but he's a very, very interesting guy with many great stories to tell, and someday maybe he'll loosen up. Anyway, I was glad Charlie came on and straightened that whole thing. And Gary, I hope he said he wasn't going to be listening. So
This is Charlie now.
You know, let me say something. Can I say something?
you could say anything you want, Dominic.
Please.
All right. I was always offended if somebody called me a wop. But do you really know what that means?
A wop.
A wop.
Okay.
When the Italians came from Italy to Ellis Island,
Yeah.
they were in two sections in Ellis Island. One section was with papers, and the other section was without papers. So that's how they got that word. Meanwhile, all these years, I'm thinking, hey, that must be a dirty Italian word. It only means that these people did not have papers, without papers. And they had to wait there until they got all their papers straightened out to leave the island. That's what WAP is.
And they stand WAP.
Yeah, but they say I understand that, and what you said is true. But there's some people that are very, very sensitive
in the wrong way. Yeah, I know.
to certain things, and there's a lot of very religious Jewish people, and I have a couple of friends like that. I mean, even if you offer them something that's not kosher, they'll get mad at you. So, it is what it is. Everybody's different. We just happen to grow up in a shed row in our closest companion with horses that never got offended or talked back. But in the real world, it's not like that. And,
Charlie says, Larry, that you have to add him. He says on his end, it says add to the host, that you have to add him.
all right, I added him, and there's no
He's
picture
back.
of him.
Yeah,
He's
you got
back.
my voice. You got my voice though, right? I don't know why.
I got
your voice
We
back.
got your voice.
My
Maybe
camera's
it's a
on. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe it's a blessing they don't have his face.
They want to
You
see my
know?
face.
That's right. You got that right, Jimmy.
I don't
Yeah.
want to look at his face anyway.
I'm too ugly for the camera these days. No, you guys are great though, man. This is good stuff.
You know that picture that they have that I can't get up? You were probably 150 pounds lighter back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Why don't you take care of yourself, Charlie? I mean, you probably.
My wife's a good cook, Larry.
Yeah, but just like I tell my brother's 400 pounds. I says, Peter, you ever see an 80-year-old guy that weighs 400 pounds and you're 80 years old? I
loved your brother Peter, man. He was great.
I think he's sticking his stomach in.
Yeah, you see that? I don't know if you can see that picture. I try to get that picture up all day today, and I can't get it up for some reason. I got to call one of these.
Did you send me? Oh, you sent me that picture. Me, you, and Johnny Boy.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I got that one too.
I was at the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
That was at the Meadowlands, that picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took the picture. Yep.
Oh, there he goes again.
His
He blacked out again.
but now he's back. Somehow he's fading in and out. I don't know. There's nothing we can do. I think it's got to be on his end.
It's on his end. Something with the camera,
The
or something.
Wi-Fi or something.
Well, then, Larry, one night, why don't we just try to hook up without being on the air with him, just to make sure that's just straightened out?
Well, he did it 2 weeks in a row.
No, I know.
All right, let me look and see any questions come up.
Tom
And
Kopp has a good idea.
Tom Kopp, I'll give him.
No, his
where?
right here.
Have a stripper on as a guest.
Yeah, Tommy.
I could do that. I can even erect a pole here and have us do some tricks on the pole. I can do that. I'll tell you, if this was in the other studio I had downstairs, I could.
Yeah.
We could do a lot of things
Downstairs.
We can even have one of them. What do you call them? Spanking parties.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we can even have one of them spanking. I wonder if we're allowed to do that on this
On YouTube?
thing.
Yeah,
I don't think you can be completely nude.
Well,
We
they could wear.
we spank over panties to start.
Well, just have a bra and panties
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Well, and this is not. These are people that want to do it. They like to get spanked.
You can't force them to.
They're sick fucking people, boy.
No,
You know.
we're not sick.
That's just what they chose to do.
We have doctors, lawyers, teachers, professors.
You hear what he's saying?
Cops,
Yeah,
fine.
it's true,
He
though.
has doctors and lawyers and that come up there and pay.
It's
get
most of those people.
They
Unbelievable.
also get spanked with feathers. They get spanked with feathers too.
No, he brought this stuff up. There was a paddle.
A flogger.
And there was a what?
A flogger with a suede,
Unbelievable. I
and
wonder
the
if we can-
rattan canes. I got a bunch of them rattan canes. They'll leave a nice
Why
stripe.
don't you get one of your customers to come here, and I'll put it right over my lap here because I can move back, and I'll just bring one of them things
All right. Yeah, well,
because they probably think we're kidding. Ain't kidding. They spanking clubs. If you Google spanking clubs, will it come up?
mine was the Manhattan Spanking Association. If you Google it, something will come up.
All right, Manhattan Spanking Association for those sick fucks that want to get spanked. Look it up.
Or
That's
spanked.
that's
A lot
this
of-
guy right here.
Yeah, but does he still have it? You don't still have it, do
No,
you?
he don't still have it, but it's a. I looked it up when he told me because I thought he was kidding, and he wasn't kidding. It's a big business in
Yeah,
Manhattan.
there's a lot of places in the city that do that now.
Now I host more private events called Steak and Spanking, where we get together, put a little filet mignon on the grill, go in the house, play a little bit, and everything's good.
I got a question from Lou. He says, "Did you ever race in Buffalo or Batavia?" I got my license in Buffalo. There was a judge there, presiding judge, and I remember his name. It's unbelievable how I remember. His name is Gordon Verhurst. He was the presiding judge. And because when I first got up there, I did a big favor. I might as well tell it real quick. When I first got up to Buffalo, Mike Foley sent me up. I didn't have no license. I didn't have nothing, but he sent me up to Buffalo from Long Island and by his horse farm with 3 horses. I got up there. The snow was 5 foot deep and everything. I go into a barn, and there's a little black groom at the end. I see a black groom. They had like 140-watt bulb in the whole barn. I think the barn had 20 stalls in it, 10 on each side. At the end was a little black groom sitting on a bale of straw with blankets over him. And after I unloaded and everything, and I went down to him and I introduced myself, and he was shaking. And anyway, the bottom line was he was very, very sick. I took care of him. I sent him to the hospital. I took care of him. And his owners wind up after the snow blizzard and everything. They came up about a week later. During that week, I took care of all his horses and everything. And they were very appreciative. And by that time, he was back on his feet again. He told the owners what I did. And the owners were very friendly with the presiding judge, Gordon Verhurst. When they found out that I wanted to get my provisional license, back then you had to get a fair license first and then a provisional license, which means you had to spend a year going around to all the fairs,
The
driving.
Q license, yeah.
No, that's for a fair license, then a qualifying license.
Yeah.
than
Then
a
the
P
provisional,
license.
yeah.
So when they brought me into Gordon Verhurst, they told him that I was a good guy, what I did and everything else. So he eliminated the fair drives. He says, just qualify in front of me. And I qualified in front of me. I think I did very well with the amount of drives that I had. And he called me in about 2 weeks before the meet ended. And he said to me, because the only horses I could qualify were the horses that I was taking care of up there. And which means they were racing sometimes 2 times a week, once for me in a qualifier and once in a race. And he called me in and he says, "Look, I watched you in all your drives." He says, "You're gonna leave here with a qualifying license." So the only time I ever raced in Buffalo was at that time. It was like 400 miles from New York. I never had any desire to go up there. And even when I got thrown out of Yonkers, it was still 400 miles away, and the purses was still small up there, just like Dover Downs and some of the racetracks around here. So no, I never raced at Buffalo or Batavia. What's this? I talked to Mr. Ed. He said my fucking feet hurt. Oh boy. Tom Lusty writes, I talked to Mr. Ed. He said my fucking feet hurt. Get me Larry Rolla's phone number quick. Very good, Tom. All right, that's it. We've been on for an hour. We gave Charlie 1 hour to try to set the. It's amazing how that kid Charlie was so successful in the horse business, so successful in the car business, and don't know how to put a camera on a fucking. If I could do it and he couldn't do it for an hour. I figured out last week when I forgot to turn the microphone on. I was going nuts, but I figured it out. It's just amazing that I guess some people have certain talents. Anyway, thank you guys for coming on.
And hit the like, please, and ring the bell if they still
Charlie,
have one.
thank you for coming on. And Patrick wrote, even though everybody thought I was Irish, I read that already.
No, keep going.
My firstborn was named Dominic after my grandfather. Well,
all right.
That's what can I say? They street talk is street talk. I wonder how a lot of the black people feel when they listen to some of these rap songs and some of these rap guys and everybody.
They call each other.
They call each other and everything else. Now I don't know if is that just. I mean, do you have to be black to talk like that, or call somebody? I don't even want to say the word.
Yeah.
And then again, there's a lot of good friends, and some of them would very, very legitimate people, and some of them were guys like Nicky Barnes, the biggest drug dealer in New York. Some of them like Leon Batts, who I had on my show, and some of them were in my crew. Some of them worked for me. Some of them, but. I don't know, but I don't know how other black people, because I don't talk about that shit.
Yeah.
How do other black people feel when they hear these black guys talking that rap stuff and the filthy language that they use?
I'm sure they're offended by it. I'm sure they have to be offended by it.
Richard Pryor used to do the same thing. Richard Pryor.
In the meantime, you know what's funny? What puzzles me, and I don't know that much about it, but what puzzles me is that you can get a guy like 50 Cent, shot about 100 times. Mother was a crack addict or whatever, and the guy in all these rap guys, the guy that married Beyonce and the biggest drug deals, all these guys, they like, and it bothers me a little bit because I know what I did. And because of what I did, I can't get a fucking trainer or driver to come on this show, whether it be harness racing or thoroughbred racing, because of my past.
Well, 50 Cent is a pretty
Jay-Z and 50 Cent and all of these guys, they're invited to the fucking White House, and I can't get a fucking trainer on my show because of what I did 50 years ago.
Well, look who the president was.
well, that's all beside the point. The point is that maybe I don't know. I don't understand it. But what I do know is this: without money, money rules. When I was a little kid, my mother used, money isn't everything. Money isn't everything, and money is everything. Without money, nothing happens. If you're broken, you're sick, you die. If you're broken, you're sick, you have the best chance of living. Nothing can happen without money. No new drugs. Nothing can happen without money. So money rules. And I guess that's why these guys like Jay-Z and them guys that were just regular street rats, all of a sudden they did everything against the law, probably killed thousands of people with what they were doing, and yet they're invited to the White House and put on a pedestal, and they can make one phone call and get anything done that they want done. And I can't get a fucking trainer to come on here. So I don't know. I just don't understand it. So that's it. So we've been on for 1 hour and 1 minute. I didn't make no mistakes. I'm not going to make none now. So I'm going to end this thing. Thank you guys for coming on. We're coming back on
everybody.
Tuesday.
Anthony, Dominic, have a good week.
Thank
And
you.
You too.
so here's the closing. The closing. See you next week. Goodbye.